So earsketch.gotech.edu. And I'm going to paste the link in the chat for everybody. All right. Is everybody able to see the earsketch.gotech.edu link in the chat? Leave me a comment if you are having any issues with that. All right, and I'll try and keep an eye on the chat here as I go along, just in case anybody else has any questions or anything I can do to make it easier to follow along. All righty, so let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everybody. I am Erin Gloucester. I'm a software engineer at T-Mobile, and welcome to Intro to Coding with Earsketch. I'm going to be guiding you through creating your first song with Earsketch, and I hope you all are having an awesome time at Code Day so far. So I think Earsketch is a super cool program, and it's a great way to make music and learning coding at the same time. So you're not just learning coding to be coding, you're actually creating some cool music or sound effects or whatever kind of audio file you want at the same time while you're learning those basic programming skills. And you can go from basic to as advanced as you want it to be. So by the end of this workshop, you'll have some basic programming skills in Python. So we're going to do Python today. And you'll be able to download whatever you make in the workshop as like an MP3 file to use in other projects that you might use in the future or that you're using during this Code Day weekend. So you're free to use whatever you make after the workshop, and you're also free to continue on. So this is only an hour long, so I definitely encourage you all to keep coding after this is over. So yeah, I'm just going to go through an intro right now. Everybody, you can follow along with me at earsketch.gotech.edu. So if you go to earsketch.gotech.edu, it should take you to this landing page right here. And you should just be able to click on Start Coding and get to that same screen that I just showed. So it should take you basically to, something like this. I'm going to go ahead and close out these extra tabs. So if you click Start Coding, you should end up in the Earsketch coding environment. So give everybody a moment to do that. So we're going to go through just what do we have on the screen here. So whenever you're coding in any language in general, whenever you're doing any sort of coding project, sometimes it's easier to have an environment set up that makes it easier for you to code. Usually different programming languages have their own version of this, or if you're coding like an app or you're coding a game, you might have your own version of a coding environment that might show you extra tools to help you code what you're trying to code. So this is usually called an IDE, so an integrated development environment. So this is the integrated development environment for Earsketch. So this specifically has tools related to coding and creating music in this environment. So all the tools you need to create music are right here in this environment provided by Earsketch. So let's go through what we have on the screen here. So this right here is going to be the main area where you're going to be doing all of your coding. So it says code editor right here. So this is where you're going to code in Python. I'll be doing Python, so you can follow along with Python. And it says click here to create your first script or a new script. So you can go ahead and do that. I've already created a few songs, but I'll just go ahead and call this first song number 3. I've created a couple of other first songs already. And the programming language is going to be Python. So you can name your song whatever you want. You don't have to call it what I'm calling it on the screen. If you just want to follow along, feel free to call it exactly what I have on the screen here. So you can go ahead and click create. And so you should see your code, your sample, your default code for your song appear here in the code editor. So you'll have a code editor down here, and then you have a bunch of different stuff over here. So this is the exciting stuff. So this area over here has all the different tools and things you're going to need to create songs in Earsketch. So this right here, the sounds tab in this content manager, you can close the content manager. You can open up these tabs again if you need more space. And so the first tab here is sounds. So Earsketch is awesome. So the creators of Earsketch have partnered with different artists and musicians to get a whole bunch of different sound clips. So as you can see here, it's showing 3,629 different clips. They have featured artists, different voice tracks and sound clips from different well-known artists, and for you to choose from, all different types of genres. And you can, once you click on one of these different sound clips, you'll be able to see all of these different choices in that same like sound family. So, and you'll be able to play the sound clip from here. You should be able to hear the computer audio as I'm going along as well. If anybody's not able to hear that, let me know.
I don't think we can hear it. You might need
can't
to,
hear.
when you screen share, I think there's an option maybe to enable sound edit sharing,
All right,
unless anyone else can hear it.
So yeah, I have share computer sound. Cannot hear. Okay, let's see. Let me try turning up the volume a little bit. Still can't hear? View options. Top screen. Let's see. So I have share computer sound that's even higher. I'm not able to. Let's see. Let me stop sharing and share one more time. All right, let's try this again. I have computer, I have the chat back open. All right, so I don't want to hold us up from here, but if you're going along with me, you should be able to click on these yourselves and hear the sound clips on your computer as well. So hopefully you're able to still follow along, even though you can't literally hear what I'm doing as well. All right, so you'll be able to click on these different sound clips right here. So on your end, you can sample the different sound clips. Oh, now you can hear. Interesting. Awesome. I'm great. I'm glad to hear that. All right. So you should be able to click on these different sound clips and hear the different options. You can favorite them, add them to your favorites list. So if you click on the filter right here that says show only, you will be able, I've already favorited a couple for the little song that I'm going to be creating today. So I have a couple of these saved for myself. You're going to be able to do all these different genres. So if you have a favorite type of music, hopefully you're able to find it here in the list. And then different types of instruments. So like for instance, we'll be starting out with the beat for your song. So maybe you want to look at drums first or something like that. So you'll be able to filter by any of these and clear the filters. And then also you'll be able to automatically press this little blue button right here to copy your sound clip into the coding area right here. So I'm not going to use this one at the moment, but that's just how you get started adding those sound clips into your code environment without having to type all of this out, because some of these can be pretty long. So yeah, you don't want to type that. So when you expand it, click the blue icon, it'll add it in there for you. So scripts. So after you start making a script, like whatever you just named your first file, it should appear in this list. As you can see, I've made a couple of different files and they all appear here. Since we are working in Python, they end in .py. All Python files have this .py file ending, so that's how you know it's a Python file. Other programming languages have other file endings to let you know what sort of file it is. Like if you're programming in Java, it would be like .java or JavaScript.js. So each programming language has their own file type. And as you can see, all of our files are in Python. And then last but not least, but probably most important, are the APIs. So API stands for Application Programming Interface, and an Application Programming Interface is basically, this is a library. Here in Earsketch is a library of all of the different actions that you can perform in Earsketch. So the Earsketch team has created a bunch of different things already that you can build on top of. So that's kind of the point of an API. Somebody else has already coded a bunch of functionality, and you are taking, or you are able to hook into their functionality. So they're providing you with these functions, which we'll go over more what a function is, that you can use. So you can use the underlying code that they've already built, and allows you to take it a step further and build something more complex or hook into existing code. So people can use APIs when you're coding. You can allow different pieces of code to interact with each other using APIs or different interfaces. So it allows different components or different people to talk with different pieces of code. So APIs are super important, and they let you know all the different actions that are available. So if you ever have a question, like if I'm going through something and you want to read it for yourself or you forgot what it is, all of the different Earsketch functions are listed right here in this panel so that you can read through how to use the functions. And another area we want to look at is this digital audio workstation. So DAW. So this DAW, or digital audio workstation, is often used even in the professional music industry, something like this. So this Earsketch, they really took the time to take stuff that's actually used in real life and put it into this environment for you to learn from. And this is a sound clip I made. So this is a sound clip that I'm going to be making today. I've already loaded up from a previous test run that I did. But basically, each of these different numbers up here, these tiny numbers at the top, you have your timestamp along the top right here. It's a little bit of lag, so let me let the video catch up a little bit. And then right underneath that, you have your measures. So measures are units of time within a song. So you can think of them as blocks, blocks of song time. It's another way to think of it. So like this is the first measure. It's just a way of organizing your song. First measure, where you can see the little white line. So if you want to put the playback needle or the red line at any of these different measures, you can start playback of your sound clip from these different lines. So first measure, second measure, third measure, fourth measure. So we have like blocks of 4, and then you have a 5 because this is the start of the 5th measure, up to the start of the 9th measure, up to the start of the 13th measure, and so on. So this is just a way of organizing your code. When you place a sound clip, it'll appear on these different tracks. So vertically, you're going to see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, however many different sound clips you have. Each one needs to go on their own separate track. So that's what you're seeing here. Each of the different sound clips are on their own separate track. Each of them have a different length. So that's why not all of them fill up the same block of time the same way, because each sound clip, has its own sound, its own different length. So that's kind of what you need to know about playing a song. You can click to start your song. You can rewind to the very beginning, press the play button to play something once you've loaded it here. You probably don't have anything yet on your screen. So, and then you can also continuously play it over and over and over again, like have it repeat. So let's go ahead and add something to our coding environment. Let's take a look what we have here. So let's get into the code. So in your first file, whatever you named it, you should see these hashtags right here. So in Python, these hashtags are indicating a comment. These comments don't actually do anything. They're mainly for you to tell yourself, what is this file for? Or what is this piece of code for? So you can add any sort of notes to yourself in a comment. So just make a line and add a hashtag in front of it, or pound symbol. You can type, anything you want there, and it's not going to be considered code, or it's not going to be considered in the code when it runs. So right here, sample song. If somebody else was looking at it, it's sometimes very useful to have comments. Put my name, author, description. So feel free to add any sort of comments you want to describe what you're about to make in this file or what this file does. And every programming language has their own indicator for what a comment is. In Python, it just happens to be this hashtag pound symbol. All right, so the next line, we have an import statement. So this right, without this right here, you don't have access to any of the Earsketch functionality. So all these different actions that you can perform, all these different functions, they're not available unless you do an import of this functionality. So that's why you have this import statement. Whenever you have an import statement in Python, you have to use these keywords. So this IDE highlights the keywords in pink for you. So special words and characters that you can't just use in your code, you can highlight, they're usually highlighted for you by the IDE in a different color. In this case, it's pink. So you would type from Earsketch, so from the Earsketch library or the Earsketch module, I want to import everything, all the different functionality available. That's what the asterisk means, that you're importing all available functions into your code. And then you start having some functions. So init, set, tempo, and finish are all different functions. And this is where you start using your API. So init is always used in Earsketch to indicate the start of a song. You can't have a song in Earsketch without having an init function call at the beginning, and you always need to have that finish function call at the end. So whenever you have any sort of song, make sure you have the init at the beginning, the finish at the end. And the thing that lets you know that this is indeed a function, this is some action that's called, or this open parenthesis and close parenthesis. So whenever you see some word or series of characters with an open parenthesis and a close parenthesis, that means it's a function and it's being called into action. So when we run this code, we're calling this function, we're calling this function, then we're calling this function. So they're going to be called in order as you type them out. So the second one here, set tempo, is we're passing in an argument. So some functions have nothing to get started or to use them, but some of them require arguments. Arguments are extra information that you would pass into a function for the function to do what it needs to do. So your function might not need any arguments, or you might have to pass different things into it. So this is an example of a function where you're passing in the tempo being how fast you want your song to go. So here, let me show you an example of how to use the API. So say, for instance, you don't remember what an init function is. So you would need to come over to your API, click on the API tab, and you can go down to init. So I already have it open right here. So usually it's closed, you click open, and you can see a description of what it is. This must be the first function call in every Earsketch script. So basically, it tells you what the function is, and that's the beauty of API. In any programming language, anytime you encounter an API, anytime you're working with a new piece of software, see if there's an API that has some good documentation, so it tells you exactly what each function does and what to expect out of it. So you can see init here, set tempo down here. It tells you the parameters. So when it says parameters, when you're writing a function, you define what the parameters are. And when you're passing in information into the function, when you're writing your code, that's called passing in arguments. So you might hear the terms parameters described in a function or the term arguments when you're actually passing your own data into the function. So here it's telling you that you need to pass in some number for the tempo. It can be between 45 and 220. Yours should have defaulted to 120, but you can play around with it to see what happens. So let's go ahead and play around with it to see what happens. Let's do exactly what I said. Let's actually get some sound on your screen. So the function fit media is used by Earsketch to actually take those sound clips and put them into your file. So you can look up the API for fit media if you want to, and see that it takes in a file name, a track number, and a start location. So if you want to use any of these functions and you don't know how to use it, look at the API. It'll tell you exactly what to do. So file name, track number, start location, and location. So let's choose a sound clip. And feel free, follow along with me. You don't have to choose the same sound clip I'm choosing. Choose a genre, music genre that you like. Choose your own sound clip. I have some that I've already prepared for myself that I've already favorited. So I'm going to start off with like a percussion beat. I want to put in the drums for my my song first. So I'm going to pop in this RD pop main beat 16. And the beauty of this, like I said, you don't have to copy this. You can just put your cursor inside of the fit media function and go ahead and press the copy button, and it pastes that in there for you. So you've pasted your first argument into this method. So method, some people, you can use, sometimes you'll hear method call, but it's the same thing. You're making actions in your code, method or function. So here we've passed in the track for your function. I'm using this RD pop main beat. This is how it sounds. So choose whatever beat you want. I just chose this one. Stop that. All right. So the next argument was the track number. So as I mentioned before, the track, each different sound clip needs its own track. Since in theory, you shouldn't have anything on your screen yet, I'm going to put 1 for that first one. And then also for the duration, I wanted to start at the first measure. So I wanted to start at the very beginning right here. And I wanted to end, I want to say 9. I wanted to end at this measure right here. So we have everything we need for this function. And that's another thing. Make sure you add the commas in between your arguments. You have to do that whenever you're passing a series of arguments, more than one argument, into a function call. You need to separate them with commas. So just like this, and then press run. And another important thing that I need to mention is that you should be able to see, this is the console down here at the bottom. So at the bottom of the screen here is the console, and it should say running script. And if there are no errors or bugs, it should say script ran successfully. And then your newly created sound clip should appear at the top of the screen. So let's play it. So you press run here, wait until it says running, and then script ran successfully. You should see the updated code at the top of the screen, and then you can press play. So now it's playing it up until the 9th measure. So not including this 9th measure, but up until, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's going to play it for all of those. Cool. All right, so let's add some more. So I'm just going to give us some time to add some more items here. Fit media, I'm just going to copy it. I want to do another beat. I have another one here, a techno loop. I'm going to add that in there. So yeah, you can add as many of these as you want, but remember, like, let's see, if I ran this right now, you would think, oh, I should see 2 different songs. But the console is very good at telling you if something's wrong, even if you don't spot it. So if I make some typing mistake or I use a function incorrectly, it'll tell me. So it's giving me all these warnings. It was able to, run it through, but we don't see our 2 sound clips, and it's saying overlapping clips. So that means we put them on the same track. It says on track 1. It tells you exactly what's wrong. So not your error messages or your warning messages won't always be as clear as this, but a lot of times they will tell you exactly what is wrong if you follow what they're saying closely. So this was my mistake. Let's go ahead and put a 2 in there and rerun it. So now we see that our 2 clips are in separate tracks, track 1, track 2. Let's play it. And like I said, you can put it on repeat and it'll start over. Another thing I want to mention, if you want to just hear one sound by itself, you can do the solo button. If you want to mute a track, you can press the mute button. So you're only playing on track 2 now because you've muted track 1. So let's unmute that. And both of our tracks are playing again now. Okay, I think you've heard enough of that. All right, so yeah, I hope you all are continuing to add the clips you want. Let's add another one. Have another clip here that I want to add. I'm going to do some pan flute. I like flutes. I used to play the flute when I was little, so I'm going to add these flute sounds here. Remember to change the track number. So you're just adding these functions in over and over again, just changing one argument to a different argument, a different sound. So let's see what we have here. Let's play it. Now we have a little flute playing on top of a drum beat, so, or whatever you have, and it'll just keep repeating. All right, cool. But you might be wondering, how do you know, like, whether you can put numbers here or what exactly are these, these words describing these sound clips? So let's take a moment to go into data types. So every programming language has their own data types. A lot of them are common across all different programming languages. So let's go ahead. I'm going to open up a separate little window right here so that this isn't going to be actual code. I'm just going to test data types. I'm not going to actually run this. I just want to do a separate space to just demonstrate different data types. So some of the basic data types we're going to go through today. You've already seen numbers. You can have 1, that's a number, 2, that's a number, 20, any number. You can have decimal point numbers, so floating point numbers, that's what it's called. Integers, so you can have, all these are numbers. You can have strings. So a string is anything that has quotes around it. So if you wanted to type out some words, you have a beginning quote and an end quote, and make sure that they're both the same type of quote. So in this case, double quotes, a double quote at the beginning, a double quote at the end. So this is my string. So this is another data type. Another data type that we're going to be using today are lists. So a list is if you want to collect a bunch of different things together, you need that open bracket, that closed bracket, and you can put whatever you want inside of it. Depending on the programming language, you might not be able to mix up the types within your list, but here in Python, that's okay. We're not going to do that today, but you can do it. So I'm just going to go ahead and put only numbers inside of my list. And then one more data type that we're going to see today is the Boolean. So Boolean is a true or false value. So it might not make a lot of sense right now, but it'll make more sense a little bit later. So true, false. And in Python, they're capitalized, true or false. These are both Booleans. So if you're trying to evaluate a statement, you can say, is 1 greater than 5? That is false. Does 1 equal 1? That is true. Does this string right here, hello, and when you're trying to compare two different things in Python, use a double equal sign. That's a comparison. So does hello double equal? So does it equal to hello? So that is true. So you can use a double equal sign to compare things. Does hi equal hello? I put a period here, didn't mean to do that. So does hi equal hello? Sure, to us, maybe hi and hello are the same thing, but in code, those are two different strings. The characters are different. They are not the same. Same thing. If you said hello equals hello, it's case sensitive. These are not the same thing. So a way to say like hi does not equal hello, or does not equal, yeah, sure, hello. That's true. So when you put a not sign before an equal sign, instead of the double equal, you're saying is hi not equal to hello. So you're doing the opposite. So these are just different ways to compare values. Or you can say is, like I mentioned earlier, is 1 greater than 5? That would evaluate to false. 1 is not greater than 5. Is 1 greater than or equal to, or let's do less than or equal to 5. So you can do these two symbols together, less than, equal to. Is it 1 less than or equal to 5? It's not equal to 5, but it's less than it. So this would actually evaluate to true. So you can do it the opposite way as well. Is 5 greater than or equal to 1? Yes, it's greater than 1. So the statement is true. Is 5 less than 1? That's false. So this is just an example. You can do these comparisons. And then one more thing before we get back to our code, our song, I just wanted to show you on these different functions, you can do different operations. So for our code today, you might want to add some numbers together. Like you might want to get the first measure and then jump ahead to another measure, another beat in your song. So it'll be useful to add your numbers together. So you can do different math operations, 1 + 1. You could do 1 - 1. So all of these operations are valid. I'm just giving you an example here. So it's basically using a calculator sort of, but in your code. Like 2 - 3, or 2 × 3, 2 divided by 3. You know, you can keep going. One more symbol that I want to show you is the modulo symbol. So this might be a concept you know of, but you might not be able to easily code it. So there's actually a symbol for this. So say you want to see if a number is even or odd. 4 is an even number. If you divide 4 by 2, you know that there's not going to be any remainder. So 2 goes into 4 exactly 2 times. There's no remainder. So to find the remainder of something more easily, you can do a modulo. So 4 modulo 2, that would be 0. So that's the case right here where you're saying we want to look at the remainder instead of the actual product of division. So 4 modulo 2, is that equal to 0? So are you doing the double equal? We're doing a comparison. Does that equal to 0? Yes, it does. So we know it's an even number. If we did 5 modulo 2, does that equal to 0? No, because 2 goes into 5 2 times with 1 left over. So the modulo, using this percent sign, this modulo symbol, will result in a 1. So you would know it was not even. It's an odd number. So this statement would not evaluate to true. So I just wanted to get through some data types. They're pretty self-explanatory, but just some data types we're going to be using in our songs today. So let's go back to our song. So we have a couple of little things here already, but something very useful that you can use when creating a song are variables. So that's a very important thing in coding. All programming languages pretty much have their own way of defining variables. So if you wanted to do a variable, so a variable is just a way to store some data in some sort of label. You're storing it somewhere in your computer, and then you want to be able to reuse it later by using that same label. So let me give you an example. So I put these percussion instruments on the first track and the second track. So I'm going to create a variable, and we can call it whatever you want, percussion track. So percussion track equals 1. I'm setting it equal to the number data type 1. And when you're trying to set a variable, you use this equal symbol right here. So I'm setting 1 into this label percussion track. I can create another one, percussion track 2 equals 2. So I'm saying my first percussion instrument is on percussion track 1. So I can replace this 1. My cursor turned into an underline. Okay. So if you're trying to, you might want to give me a little bit of information on that comment right here. But if you're creating a variable and you're placing it into your code right here, so for the first track, you can replace your number with percussion track. You can replace percussion 2 with your number for the track, and it's going to act the same way. Let me know in the comments if anybody else is having any issues. It inserts characters instead of regular typing. Inserts characters instead of regular typing. Huh. Maybe you have some I'm thinking that might be some sort of shortcut on your computer. Maybe try typing in something else and seeing if when you come back to the screen, if it's acting the same way. Is it doing that on all different insert? Yeah, that's a good question. Insert key where it starts adding or deleting stuff. So yeah, let's see if it's only in Earsketch or if it's happening in other typing areas as well. But that might be a good one. Insert key or maybe some shortcut you have on your computer already. But it's only in Earsketch. So I have an idea for that one. If you haven't already, if all of you you want to use your code later, you want to save your progress, go ahead and create an account up here. You should be able to create an account without leaving the screen. And so I recommend for you, because I don't know, I haven't run across that before, so I can't immediately debug it, but maybe if you refresh your page, but only after you create your account, so it saves it, then maybe, whatever's going on will stop. Or try opening a separate window, a separate instance of Earsketch and seeing if that resolves your problem if you don't want to create an account right now. So hopefully that will fix it. So let's go ahead and play what we have right here. Oh, it worked? Okay, awesome. Good to hear. It's a little hard to debug from here, but hopefully that worked. And hopefully it should save pretty regularly. So if you do create an account and refresh, it should tell you that it's saving before you refresh your page, and you should be able to come back to it later. So let's play what we have right now. I've added 4 different tracks, and I've replaced 2 of these numbers with variables that I've defined. Okay, so cool. So it works exactly the same. But you might think, oh, I just replaced a number with a longer word. Why would I do that? So this isn't the greatest example of why a variable is useful, but you can. Here's a great example right here. So I'm going to create another variable called song length. And instead of a 9 measure song, I want my song to stop at the 17th measure. So right now I have to go through and manually change all of these 9s to 17. And what if I want to change it to something else later? So right now it's 9. I'm going to replace all of these song lengths with, or all of these 9s with song length now. And it's going to act, it's going to act exactly the same. If it doesn't, it'll tell you down here if you accidentally type something wrong. So yeah, it acts exactly the same. But as your code grows more and more and more complex, you're going to see the benefit of adding variables, because instead of having to dig through, like say this was 100 lines long and I had 100 fit medias all with the same song length. Instead of having to go through and I was like, oh man, I actually want to make my song a little longer or a little shorter. Instead of having to change it over and over and over again, use a variable. So now you're taking this piece of data that you've stored up front and you're reusing it in different locations throughout your code. So I want to change this to 17 now. And see, I don't have to go through and change it every single place in my code. It automatically will pull 17 out of this variable and place it into this argument for this function. So let's run it and see what happens. So now you can see it goes up until the 17th measure instead of the 9th measure. So that's just one of the uses of variables. As you write more and more complex code, you should write variables that describe what the data is meant to be used for. So I'm specifically using this 17 variable, or number 17 as my song length, so that's why I called it song length. Don't create a variable called X, and then you're using it all throughout your code. And then later on, you have no idea what it's for. So it's best to name your variable something useful. And also, every time you use a variable, you have to reuse the same case. So don't make like this lowercase. That's not the same thing as the variable you define. Coding is very case sensitive, so you can't switch it up. It's got to be the same. So like if I ran this, we'll see an example of the console throwing an error. See, it says an error because even though you might think, oh, I have song length for all of them. What is it talking about? But it tells you song length hasn't been defined. We don't have a variable named song length with a lowercase L. We have song length with an uppercase L. So go back and put that uppercase L there. So yeah, that's a little bit on variables. All right, so we have this song right here. Sound a little bit repetitive. That's okay. It sounds a little cool too. I kind of like it. But what if we wanted to create our own beat for this? What if we don't want to just use the predefined beats that they already have here? So in Earsketch, there's a method where you can make your own beat. So I'm going to make a beat right quick. I'm going to use a variable and I'm going to set it equal to a string. All beats in Earsketch come as strings, and I'm going to just type this out and explain it. So when you add a 0, you're saying that's the start of a beat. When you put these plus signs, you're saying you want the sound clip to extend or the beat to extend for 4 more little beats. And then you can add another beat to start the beat again, add another 4 little sound clip, or extend another 4 or 3 measures or sub measures. And then we can add another one. So I've made a beat string, so it's like clap, 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 clap. So that's kind of how I'll sound. I'll play it for you in a second. And then you use the make beat function. So make beat. So you can look this up in your API if you want to read more about it. And I'm going to use another percussion instrument. Let's see, snare. I'm going to use a snare. So something short and quick. That's kind of the best thing to use. So under this make beat thing, I have this snare here, and I want it to be on the 5th track. So we've used tracks 1 through 4, so it has to be on the 5th track. And we want it to start at the 1st measure, and we want to use this beat string. So we're using the string, which defines our beat. So the make beat method, or the function, internally, it knows how to handle that string for us. So that's the beauty of using the API, using existing functions that other people have written, that we can make use of this functionality, make our own cool songs without having to dig into the guts of it. So let's put our beat string here. So let's run this and see what happens. So we just have this little tiny beat down here. Let's see. I'm going to solo this one, so mute everything else, and let's hear what we have. Let me start it at the beginning. And that's it. For whatever reason, it's not, it's not going to the end. It plays just a little bit at the beginning. So as you can hear, it follows this beat string: clap, 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 clap. So start, 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 start. So you can play around with the string a little bit to get the beat you want, and it should follow that rhythm for you. So you're making your own rhythm. You don't have to use the predefined rhythms or sounds necessarily. If you want to make something a little cool or complicated, if you like making beats, this is the way to do it. But you might be thinking, it's only playing in this little tiny first section right here, this first measure, and we want to extend it. So that's where for loops come in. So we're going to go over for loops now. So a for loop, or loops in general, are a way to take a piece of code and have the computer repeat it for you. So have the code repeat it for you. And we want to use a loop right here because we want to, instead of copying this over, 9 times or 17 or 16 times or whatever, we want to use a loop to do this for us. So we're not repeating the same code over and over again and cluttering up our code. So let's go ahead and write that loop right now. So I'm going to say so when you create a for loop, you use the keyword for. So, and you also need to use a counter. So I'm going to say for I, I'm just using I as my counter variable. So for I, and then you use the keyword range. So this is a Python function. This isn't an Earsketch function. This is within Python in order to write your for loop. And you can describe your range. So typically in a programming language, they start off at 0. But we don't want to start off at 0 because we want to start at the first measure. So usually when you're writing a loop, 0 is the first position, and then you go up until the end. But here we want to start from 1 because on our song, our measure stops at 1. It doesn't start counting at 0. But that's something to remember about programming. Most programming languages start counting at 0. So our for loop, though, is going to start at 1. So 1. And we get a chance to use a variable that we define, song length. So for I, so that's our counter in the range 1 through song length, which happens to be set to 17 right now, we want to do this make beat over and over again. So you write a colon and you go down to the next line right here. And so we can, instead of putting this make beat up here, I'm going to cut it and paste it down here inside of our for loop. And so basically this counter right here is going to increment every single loop. So that's why it's called a loop. So you're looping over and over again until a certain condition is met. Until this count reaches this end range, it's going to keep looping. So until I, which starts at 1, reaches 17, it's going to keep doing make beat. But we want to make sure we're adding the beat at different measures instead of just the first measure over and over and over again. So that's where we're going to put I at, because it's going to count up for us. And instead of I, why don't I just call it count? So we're saying for this count in this range from 1 to song length, I want you to make a beat for each of those counts. So make beat at the first measure, make beat at the second measure, make beat at the third measure, make beat at every measure up until 17. So it's not going to make a beat at the 17th measure. It's going to stop before there. So when you have a range, this end value is not included. So it's going to go up until the 16th measure, and it's going to make beat. So let's run it. Let's see if I don't have any errors here, and it should run just fine. So as you can see, our beat is now in the entire length of our song now. So yeah, let me know in the comments if any of that isn't confusing to you, but basically a for loop, you're counting up until some specific end condition, which in our case is this range right here. For the range 1 to our song length, we're going to make a new beat at a new measure. So we're counting up each time and adding a beat at the next measure. So make a beat at the first measure, second measure, etc. So let's play it. It just keeps going now. It doesn't just stop at the beginning. And let me play the rest of the song with it. Cool. So we've added another beat on top of all of our other beats. But say you want to spice it up a little bit. So one thing I decided to do to change it up is to use a string method or string function on top of our beat that we already created. So I'm going to create another variable called reversed beat. And I want to take this beat but play it at the inverse or the opposite rhythm. So where this one starts, our reverse beat will actually start on the end, if that makes sense. You'll see, it'll make sense when you actually hear it. But we're going to use the method or the function reverse string. Reverse string. And we're passing in as an argument our original beat to get the same string reversed. We're reversing the string. So instead of 0 plus plus plus, it's going to be plus 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 0. So you kind of get the idea. And it's going to reverse all of the characters in our string. So now we have a reverse beat, which is also a string. So I want to use both of them though. I want to use both of them back and forth. So in order to do that, I'm going to create one more variable, and I'm going to choose for odd numbers, I want to play the first beat. For the even number measures, I want to play the other beat. So I'm going to create another method called chosen beat, and it's going to equal, just start off with our original beat. And now we're going to get into if-else statements. So earlier I mentioned that you can do different comparisons on code. So now we're going to take our count. So if our count is even, so count modulo 2 is equal to 0. So we're creating a Boolean right here. So if count is even, so count modulo 2, if the remainder is equal to 0, we know that it's even. So it'll evaluate to true. Then I want to say the chosen beat is equal to the reversed beat. Okay. And I put a spelling mistake. Remember, the syntax, the way you're coding, the rules for the language syntax are such that you cannot mix up your cases. So make sure your variable names, like don't do what I just did where I accidentally put a capital letter in the middle of my 5-minute warning. Awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and get this played. Go ahead and play this. So let's do the else. So we have otherwise, so you have an if statement saying if one condition is true, do this. Otherwise, do chosen beat equals beat. So you don't have to put this here since chosen beat is already equal to beat. But just for clarity, I put this here. So if it is even, play this one. If it is odd, play the other one. So make beat. And instead of using beat, we're going to use chosen beat. All right, let's play it, and then we'll have our song. All right, let's give it a run. So now you can see that we're playing, our beat got a little bit more complicated because we're mixing up, our normal beat and our reverse beat. So you kind of hear an interesting little beat pattern in there because we're switching up our reversed and our unreversed beats back and forth. So that's the way to do a for loop with an if statement inside of it. And before we run out of time, I just want to show you how to download your song. So go to scripts, and you'll be able to go to any of your songs and click download, and you can choose how you want to download it. So if you want to use this recording, this MP3 and something else, you can use WAV or MP3 file, and you'll have this audio clip of your song download it to your computer. You can use in your other projects. So if you're making an app or you're making a game, you need some sound effects, or you need a little bit, a little tune to go in the background, this is the perfect place to generate those little sounds for your other applications. Or if you want to make a full-fledged song and share it with your friends, you can do that too. So you would just click download on one of these. One more thing I want to show you before we finish up here is a method. So if we have enough time here, let me go ahead and type this out. So say, for instance, you want to be able to choose different beats. So you could do choose audio. I'm just going to, when you're writing a function, you use the def function call here. You can pass in your own argument. So say I wanted to choose in my beat, and you can return. So when you write a method, you can return different values. You can return something. So my beat. So I'm going to pass in a list. We didn't get to go into this as much, but say I had a list of beats. And I am going to take some, or list of sounds. This is fine. I'll do list of sounds. I had some harp sounds that I wanted to add to my song right here. You can write your list by doing comma separated values. So you can add in a list of sound clips right here. And then you can pass in this list of songs. And then if you wanted to, you can pass in an index as well. So out of my list of songs, I want to get the second item. So in Python, as I said, or in most programming languages, they always start from 0. So this is a 0th index, first index, second index. So if I wanted the last one, I could pass in a 2 and return list of beats at 2. So this is just an example of writing a function or for yourself. So instead of using a pre-existing function, you're actually writing a function. So we created a list of our sounds. So you can kind of get creative with this. If you want to start adding in your own sounds the way you want to, you can do this right here. And you can choose from that list. I'm going to go ahead and jump over to one of the scripts that I've already completed. Let's see. First song 2, where I created a list right here. And I use the random number generator to choose a random index and to return a random song from my list. And so I'm actually ended up writing a song that randomly generates the last couple of tracks. So I'm going to play this for you right quick, just for you to have some more ideas later on when you're continuing to build out your song. So as you can see, I'm randomly generating what goes on the next 4 tracks here based on this list of sounds that I chose ahead of time. So I'm letting the computer do some of the hard work for me and choosing what sounds I want to use. So let's start it at the beginning. And so I start to see these different sounds gradually added in, and I use the loop for that as well. All right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up. And as I mentioned before, you go to your scripts, press this button on the side here, download, and you can download whatever you created today or whatever you create in the future and share it with your friends, share it with your family. And I hope everybody enjoy the, learning the basic of Python and also creating your own music and sound effects. Hope everybody has a great